the subject matter of this debate, the outcome of the G20 Leaders Summit. As you know, Presidents von der Leyen and Michel represented the European Union. President Lula has put a special emphasis on fighting inequalities under this Brazilian presidency, and this was reflected in the official launch of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. The European Union, together with 82 countries and organizations, proudly joined this alliance as a founding member. With the aim of reducing global inequalities, G20 leaders also agreed to engage cooperatively to ensure the taxing of ultra-high net worth individuals, but this according to the principle and the respect of tax sovereignty of all states. The President highlighted our commitment as European Union to make the fight against poverty a priority. And this was reflected in our first ever anti-poverty strategy. But let me remind you, and through you, Europeans, that the European Union and our member states remain the largest global provider of development aid, contributing collectively around 90.59 billion euros last year. Another focus of the summit was obviously climate change and energy transition. Together with others, the European Union wanted to send a strong signal on our increased ambition to the COP29 negotiations, including the transition away from fossil fuels and our commitment to absolute emission reduction targets. This was, however, unfortunately not possible. Instead, G20 leaders reaffirmed their commitment to the outcome of the global stocktake from last year's COP28, and ahead of next year's COP30 in Belém, the EU will support Brazil in ensuring a more ambitious outcome. Another subject of the summit was gender equality. That also, unfortunately, proved to be contentious. Similar discussions occurred during the Parliamentary 20 meeting a few weeks ago, and as the European Union, we remain fully committed to promote gender equality and women's empowerment. Another key topic for Brazil is the reform of the global governance. The call to action adopted in September was one of Brazil's deliverables in calling for reform of the United Nations and of the international financial institutions. Leaders endorsed this G20 roadmap in the reform of the multinational development banks and encouraged the IMF and the World Bank to support vulnerable countries that face liquidity challenges. Honourable members, obviously, as you could imagine, geopolitics and the current turbulent situation in geopolitics clearly overshadowed the G20 summit. Once again, compared with the previous two leader summits, the escalation in the Middle East has significantly changed the dynamics. That's why the Leaders' Declaration covers first general principles and then separate paragraphs on the Middle East and Ukraine using the New Delhi Declaration and relevant UN Security Council language as references. We, as European Union, would have certainly liked to obtain more ambitious language on Ukraine. The language contains key asks for the EU, such as the respect of the UN Charter, human suffering, the need for just and durable peace. The President condemned notably the involvement of North Korea in the war in Ukraine. And as regards Gaza, President von der Leyen also called for a ceasefire and the immediate release of hostages and the end of the suffering of the Palestinian people, as well as the need for a two-state solution. So there you go. This was the result, rather a mixed result, but I'm sure you would understand that with Russia around the table and the overall geopolitical dynamics in this group, this was as much as possible to have achieved. Thank you.
Herzlichen Dank, Herr Vizepräsident.